Hello folks, welcome to my channel Java Demystified by SSR. Here comes the question number 15. What is object class? Explain clone method. So let's demystify this. So what we do here is we understand firstly what the object class. We list out the methods of the object class. Then we understand this clone method through a program. Okay, so let's demystify the details. So let me open actually one image here. I have an image which actually gives me the methods of object class. First of all, what is an object class? Object class is a class which is defined in java.lang package. Okay, object class is available in java.lang package, and object class is considered to be super class of all Java classes. So let me write this actually. So object class, so this is something like this, and its fully qualified name is java.lang.object. Okay, so it is a super class of all Java classes. That means all our classes that we are writing will be the subclasses of this particular object class. Okay, and this object class has some methods. Especially there are 11 methods. And these 11 methods will provide some common functionality to all the programmers. Okay, so the object class provides common functionality to some minimal common functionality which is required by all the Java programmers. So those who are writing the Java programs, they can actually make use of these methods, and they can actually carry out the tasks. So those methods were defined actually in object class. What are those methods? For example, you can see the clone method. So clone, what clone will do? Creates and returns a copy of the object. Creates and returns a copy of the object. That means an object can be cloned. That means from an object you can actually create a duplicate object. Okay, so the return type of this clone is actually object. So this we have to see actually. So in this question this was asked. So we need to discuss about this particular clone method. Okay, so the return type is actually object type. This is important. And then we have equals method. So this indicates whether some other object is equal to this one or not. S1 dot equals of some Java. S1 is also a string object. So this equals we are going to see in detail actually later on. So then we have a finalize method. So this finalize method will be called whenever the garbage collector comes and frees all the unreferenced object. So prior to the garbage collector invocation, this finalize method is going to get executed. So we'll have a question on this finalize separately, and you just remember finalize will be used whenever the garbage collector invokes and collects all unreferenced objects. And we have a get class method also. It returns the runtime class of the object. So get class method actually helps us to do reflection mechanism in Java, and it returns a class type capital CLASS. This is also available in Lang package. Capital CLASS class. Okay, so here the question mark is generic wildcard actually. So get class can returns the runtime class. That means whenever a class is loaded into the main memory, a class instance is created. Class capital CLSS instance is created, and in order to create that, so this get class method actually will be used. So this is actually the entry point for reflection mechanism. We will see this separately. And then there is a hash code. There is a hash code method. This has been covered in previous questions. Returns the hash code value of the object. And we have a toString method also. This method has been seen in the previous question. Returns a string representation of the object. Okay. So the 6 methods like toString, hash code, get class, finalize, equals, and clone. So they have their own functionalities, and rest all 5 methods like notify all, these 2 things, and then wait with one parameter and wait with the 2 parameters. So wait long timeout means it takes milliseconds. It actually takes milliseconds and nanoseconds. Okay, so these 5 methods will be used in multi-threading. So in multi-threading, whenever multiple threads are acting on synchronized resources, these methods will help to have inter-thread communication. Okay, notify all, wait, 3 methods. All these 5 methods will help us in inter-thread communication as part of the multi-threading. Okay, so these are the 11 methods of object class. Okay, the object class provides a minimal common functionality which is required for every Java program. Okay, we are actually using toString method. Whenever you are printing an object reference, you can actually know what is the hash code value of every object. And to clone method, you can actually create a copy of the object. Equals method, you can compare 2 objects. You can compare 2 objects whether they are same or not with respect to their contents. Student S1 and student S2, both are same or not. Okay, so finalize method as part of garbage collector will be used actually, and this finalize method helps us to do some cleanup processing. And then we have a get class method. This helps actually to have reflection mechanism. Through reflection mechanism, what we do is we actually observe the runtime behavior of the runtime behavior of the Java classes which are loaded. Okay, so that is advanced feature and very important feature. So rest all 5 methods will be used in inter-thread communication. Okay, so these are the methods of object class, and now our interest actually is the clone method. So let us now understand this clone method. Yeah, so let me clear all these things before actually I open my Sublime. Actually I'm going to my Sublime. Yeah, so here, so this program has been seen in the previous question as well. So here we will demonstrate the clone method, right? So what is the clone method? Clone method helps us to create a copy of the object. So here I have an object. Here I have an object. What is that object? Student object, which is referred by S1. Okay. So now what we can do is we can create a copy of that particular S1. So how to do? Student S2, student S2. So that means I have a reference type S2 which can actually point to student types. What I do is I will actually clone this particular S1. Student S2 equal to S1 dot clone. Okay, so now clone means it will create a copy of S1 and S1 is referred by S2. That means both S1 and S2 will be same. But this is not that much simple actually. So there are so many things one has to understand. Yeah, so whenever any class object you want to clone, so this class should implement, that class should implement, there is a keyword called implements. The class should implement an interface called clonable, capital C. So clonable is an interface, and this clonable actually is a marker interface. It's a marker interface. That means any marker interface has no methods in it. So it is just written with interface name, it is written and nothing there inside that particular interface. It is a marker interface. So whenever this interface is used, JVM understands about some information. So JVM will understand by seeing these marker interfaces. So now what JVM will understand here by seeing this particular clonable means, yeah, which class is actually implementing clonable? Student class implements clonable, right? Now JVM understands that the objects of the student can be cloned. So that means one can actually create copies of the objects of the student. If this implements clonable is not there, then if you try to clone, you are actually going to get an exception that is called clone not supported. Clone not supported exception one will get actually. Okay, so the first thing is, in order to clone, you should use clone method, right? And then whenever you are cloning an object, you have to ensure that that particular class implements clonable, and this clonable is a marker interface. What is a marker interface? Marker interface is just an interface which has no methods in it. Usually what should happen is, whenever a class implements some interface, it is the responsibility of the class to provide implementation for all the methods of this particular interface. But marker interface has no methods, so nothing is to implement. This is just for the JVM to understand that the class, the objects of this student class can be cloned. So that is other thing. Okay, so when you clone, what has to be done is, we have to print this, right? Yeah, the cloned object details will print. So system.out.println, and then we are printing actually what? S2. Yeah, so when you print S2, what happens? S2.toString, right? S2.toString. So toString method is overridden. Okay, so this program, if you see, we have written a constructor to eliminate the setter method, and we have written, we are overriding the toString method to eliminate the getter method, and we have three members which available in the student class, and whenever an object is created, roll number and name are getting set, and we have a static member available here, and that will get placed in the class area. So when we are constructing two members, and when we are printing s1.toString, the toString method actually returning roll number, name and college. Okay, so now here when we clone actually, okay, so what is actually happening? So we are cloning a particular student object. So, and student class implements a clonable, that is mandatory, that's we are taking care actually. So one more thing that has to be taken care is, whenever you use clone method, so clone method has a capability of, inherent capability of throwing clone not supported exception. So that you actually has to declare. So we have a throws keyword which helps to declare exceptions. Okay, so because clone method has a capability of throwing clone not supported exception, what the user has to do means, that means whoever the caller of this clone method, here the main method is the caller of this method, what the main method has to do is, either it has to keep everything in try catch, that means this statement in try catch, otherwise this method actually can declare that particular exception. Okay, so in order to declare specifically that exception, but you can actually declare exception class, because exception class contains all checked and runtime exceptions. Okay, so we just need to say throws exception, so that clone not support exception will be allowed by the compiler now, because you are actually declaring it. Okay, so how many points you need to remember? This is the first point where actually you have to clone, and the second point is, it should be implementing, the class should be implementing the clonable interface, that is a marker interface, and third is, wherever you are using this clone method, that particular method must actually declare that particular exception, clone not supported exception. Okay, so exactly you don't remember clone not support exception, you can actually throw it super class also. So exception is a super class of checked exceptions and runtime exceptions. So this will work actually. So now let's see. So this is about the clone. Let's see the outcome. So clear, and then say Java C Yeah, of course I have these things written. So Java C student dot Java. Yeah, so there is something missing. Yeah, so what is that is actually, so here I'm writing 3, but I have not put these comments. Actually I am putting those comments actually. So I'm making this third point. So like 1 2 3 points we have discussed, right? So I kept them in points. So let me save this, and then it will compile successfully. Yeah, so something is expected. This is related to that only. Yeah, so now Java C student dot Java. Yeah, so one more thing actually has to be remembered. So in the first point, you have to use the clone method. But what is the return type of the clone method? The return type of the clone method is object type, right? The return type of the clone method is object type. So whenever s1 dot clone, it will actually return an object. But what is your, but what type you are pointing actually here? Student. The clone copy you are actually catching through s2. S2 is of type student, but return type is object. Okay, so now there is a type compatibility issue. So that's why what you do is we explicitly typecast. Okay, whatever s1 dot clone is returning, that is object, right? So we are explicitly typecasting to student, and then we are catching actually to s2, which is of type student. Okay, why the problem actually here? The problem is clone method returns object type. Clone method returns object type. So that's the problem. So that's why we have to explicitly typecast it. Okay, so this point also has to be remembered. Let's say this is fourth point. We have 4 things to be remembered whenever you are working with clone method. So first is clone method, then clonable interface, then declaring clone not supported exception, and also explicit typecasting to your class type. Okay, so now actually go to terminal and then clear everything. See Java C student.java now compile successfully, and then if you run Java space student, what actually should happen? You have two system.out.println statement. System.out.println of S1, that is nothing but 100 XYZ and Harvard, and that same object we are actually cloning. That means we are taking a copy of that particular object. So you will also get the same details once again. Let's see. Yeah, 100 XYZ Harvard, 100 XYZ Harvard. So we are done, right? So this is how the clone method will work. So for example, I have not written implements clonable. I have not written implements clonable. So what actually is going to happen? Let's see. Try to compile. It's compiled fine, no problem. There is no compile time problem. Okay, so but when you run, so you will get some runtime exception. See, first system.out.println S1 has got printed, there is no problem. But at 17th line, if you see, at 17th line, student.java 17th line, we are actually cloning the student object. But what is the error? Exception in thread main java.lang clone not supported exception at the student main student dot java 17. Clone not supported because the student is not implementing clonable interface. JVM has no clarity. That means JVM by default will not allow any object to be cloned. So JVM has to be intimated. So how JVM has to be intimated? This class should implement clonable interface. Otherwise, we are going to get clone not supported exception. Okay. So now, so this is the runtime exception, right? JVM at JVM, right? Java Virtual Machine comes at runtime only. So that's why what we need to do is we have to make it implements clonable. Implements clonable. Save this, and then actually you try to run now. Compile. Compilation was successful. Clear everything. Clear everything. Then say Java space student. Now we are actually getting printed actually. So now JVM knows that the student objects can be cloned. Okay, that is one part. That is about the runtime exception. You can actually get we can actually make this program to actually generate some compile time exceptions also. For example, here I am not, this main method is not throwing exception. Main method is not throwing exception. Okay, so now what happens? I am saving this. Compiler will not allow actually, now the compiler will not allow you to compile the program. See, Java C student.java, and the compiler has now, this is the compile time exception, clone not support exception. What is actually saying? Unreported exception, clone not support exception, caught or declared to be thrown. So this has occurred during clone. So clone method inherently has the capability of throwing clone not support exception. So Java compiler knows about that. So compiler wants you to either catch or declare to be thrown. What is catch actually? So we have to make use of try catch, otherwise we have to make use of throws. So the try catch and try catch mechanism, finally mechanism, and throws, all these things we will discuss separately. Let understand. So because it has inherently an exception is there, so we have to declare it, otherwise catch it. So I am not catching it, but I am declaring it. So I am just saying throws exception, so the problem will be solved, right? So now compile. So compiler allows us to compile successfully, and when you run, we can actually see. So this is how the clone method can be understood, right? So 4 points one has to understood while working with the clone. So clone actually is a method of object class. Clone helps to create a copy of some object, and in order to do that, clone method has to be used, and clone returns the object type. So whenever you are cloning a particular object, you have to typecast explicitly to that object's type, and then we have that class has to implement clonable interface, which is a marker interface. Marker interface will have no methods, just that provides information to the JVM. And whenever you are using this clone method, whoever is the caller, that caller has to either catch that particular clone not support exception or declare that particular exception. So here the main is calling clone, right? So as part of the main only, this clone method is called, right? So main has the responsibility to use either try catch or use throws with this particular exception. Okay, so this is about clone method and object class methods. Hope you have understood the object class methods briefly, and the clone method in detail. So if you understood properly, so please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Thanks for watching.